my motto, nothing's ever holding back.
Hello and welcome back to the Lone Road iRacing podcast with me, Guy Robertson. The podcast where we talk about real iRacing, the highs, the lows and everything in between. Now, this week's episode, this one might hit a nerve or two, because I want you to think about this for a second. Have you ever had that race where everything just clicks? You qualify well, you avoid the early lap chaos, you hit your apexes, and you manage the pressure, and you finish top 3, and even maybe a win. You come away thinking, that's it, I've cracked it, I've improved, I've levelled up. And then the very next race, lap 1 contact, lap 3 off track, mid-race frustration, and you finish P14 with a handful of incident points and your iRating heading south faster than a spin on cold tyres. The same driver, the same week and the same car, but completely different result. So you start questioning yourself, what happened? Was it bad luck? Was it just that they were better drivers? Was it netcode? Or something else entirely? Because today we're talking about something that quietly sits underneath almost every iRacer's journey, the consistency crisis. And I'll say this early, this isn't about speed. Most of you listening or watching are already fast enough. This is about something much more important: repeatability, control, discipline, and above all, the right mindset. Because in iRacing, your best race doesn't define you, but your average one does. So let's get into it. What do I mean by a consistency crisis? That's the first question. It's that pattern, we've all seen it, we've all actually lived it. One great result followed by 2 or 3 poor ones. You're not slow, you're clearly not clueless, but your results, they look like a roller coaster. Up, down, up, down. And here's the thing, iRacing doesn't reward your potential. It doesn't care about your fastest lap. It doesn't care about that one brilliant drive. It rewards what you can do over and over again under pressure. And that's where consistency comes in. Consistency is predictable lap times, controlled decision making, stable performance across races, and most importantly, not beating yourself up. Because most iRacers don't lose positions to faster drivers. They lose them to mistakes. And those mistakes, they're not random. They have a pattern. Now let's get into the real meat of this episode, because inconsistency doesn't just happen. It's actually created. Quietly, over sessions, over decisions, and over a change in mindset. This is the one of the biggest traps, overdriving after success. You have a great race, and suddenly your expectations shift. I shouldn't be finishing here every time now, you tell yourself. So what do? And we've all done it. You push that little bit harder. You try and brake that little bit later. and you attack more aggressively. But here's the catch. You're no longer driving naturally, you're chasing a result. And the moment you start chasing outcomes, you stop executing processes. And that's where mistakes keep creeping. This one stings a bit. Lack of racecraft, but not speed. Because a lot of drivers think they're inconsistent because they're not fast enough. And that's really the issue. The issue is poor positioning, bad judgment in battles, fighting cars you shouldn't fight, and not knowing when to yield. Fast drivers, guess what? They also crash, but smart drivers actually finish the race. And guess which one gains iRating over time? And then there's mental fatigue across the week. And this is massive and massively underrated. You jump into multiple races, back-to-back sessions, maybe a bad result here, a frustrating incident there, and instead of resetting, you carry it forward. Frustration builds, focus drops, and decision-making suffers. Because you know it. You're not racing the track anymore, you're racing your emotions, and that never ends well. And the next one is for everywhere, practice versus reality gap. You go into a test session, you're smooth, you're consistent, you're hitting your braking markers. Then race day comes, you have traffic, pressure and unpredictability. And suddenly your consistency disappears. But why does that happen? This is because you've practiced in a vacuum. Racing is chaos, and if you don't practice chaos, you'll never handle it in the race. Now, let me bring all this back to one of my own experiences. I've actually lived this. There have been weeks where my iRating has climbed nicely, and I felt in control, measured, and pretty consistent. And then there's the weeks when I've undone all of that progress in a handful of races. And when I really looked at it honestly, it wasn't pace, it wasn't decisions, it was the brain and the wrong mindset. It was taking unnecessarily risks early, not resetting after a bad race, and trying to get it all back immediately. And that's a dangerous mind space to be in, because chasing losers usually creates more losses. One of the biggest improvements I've made wasn't actually getting faster. It was becoming more selective, more controlled, more aware of when not to push, and that changed everything. We're going to have a mid-episode break now, and we're going to hear from the show's sponsor, Outlap, and we'll be right back. We're having a quick pause here to mention our sponsor, Outlap, who are supporting the podcast. Outlap is built around the side of sim racing we don't talk about enough. The focus, the preparation, and mental work that happens long before the race actually starts. It's not about hype or loud designs. It's about process, patience, and showing up ready, whether that's in the rig or stepping away from it. If that side of sim racing resonates with you, you'll find Outlap quietly ticking along in the background. I want to thank Outlap again for sponsoring the podcast, and the link to their sim racing apparel store is in the show notes. I just want to thank Outlap again for sponsoring the podcast. So moving on, how to fix the consistency problem. And this is where it matters, because identifying the problem is one thing, fixing it is where the gains are made. Stop thinking about your best race. We've all got that in our heads, so it sometimes is quite difficult. But start thinking about your worst acceptable race. What's the lowest standard you're willing to accept? Because consistency isn't about peaks, it's about raising the floor. Lap 1 mindset shift. Lap 1, we all know, is not where races are won, but it's very often, and we all know this, where they are lost. So what is your goal? Survive, position and settle, not attack everything that moves. Therefore you have to pick your battles. Every overtake carries some risk. So ask yourself, is this worth it right now? Sometimes the fastest way forward is patience. And session discipline. And this one is another huge one. Limit your races, reset between sessions, walk away after a bad race, because quantity without quality leads to inconsistency. And track the right metrics. Stop focusing only on wins or podiums. Start tracking average finish, incidents per race, and positions gained versus lost, because these are the actual numbers that matter and they tell the real story. The hard truth. Let's be honest for a moment, no sugarcoating, no excuses. Your best race and my best race means actually nothing if you can't repeat it. And iRacing and iRating does not lie. It reflects your decision making, your control, your consistency. If you're not constantly going up and down, you're not just being unlucky, you're being inconsistent. And that's something you can fix. So we're going to be back in a few seconds with this week's iRacing Agony Uncle. We'll be right back, listeners and viewers. Right, let's finish with this week's iRacing Agony Uncle. And this one fits today's topic perfectly. Another listener has wrote into the show with this question. I can qualify near the front, but I always drop positions in the race. What am I doing wrong? And listener or viewer who sent that in, thank you very much, and other listeners and viewers, let's have more of these type of questions. This is incredibly common, and it usually comes down to one thing. You're driving race laps like qualifying laps. You're over pushing early, you're not managing your tyres, your space and the risks, and also traffic. That approach doesn't work. Advice from the iRacing Agony Uncle is drive at 95%. Race pace is controlled and it's not always at maximum. Think ahead, stop reacting and start anticipating. First 5 laps equals survival mode. The more iRacing you do and the more experience you gain, you understand that there's a settling period in every race where the field starts to spread out naturally, so let the race settle and play the long game. Lose 1 position now and gain 3 later on, so that's all about strategic yielding. At times you have to yield because there's a faster car or a car that seems reckless coming behind you. The key line here is stop trying to win the race on lap 1 and start trying to finish it properly. So viewers and listeners, what have we learned today? Consistency. It isn't flashy, it's not exciting, it doesn't always feel like progress, but it is the foundation of everything on iRacing. Because in iRacing, anyone can have one great race and have great pace. Very few can have 10 in a row. And that is where the difference is made. So if you've enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow, subscribe and share it with your fellow iRacers who might just need to hear this today. And if you've got a question for the iRacing Agony Uncle, send it in and we'll tackle it in a future episode. I'm always looking for guests and co-hosts to also join me on the podcast. So if you're one of those people who are thinking about it, drop me a line and we can exchange some views and some ideas together. Until next time, stay focused, stay patient, and I'll see you on the grid soon. And don't forget to say hello. Happy iRacing.
Whatever it takes, we're racing, we're in the zone. Whatever it takes, we push hard, never alone. I'm in the cockpit, the engines roar, hear me now. We're racing circles, got a hustle, made a vow. Chasing victory, it's all or nothing on the track. Sweet is my motto, nothing's ever holding back.